Hi everyone, welcome to the stream. I've come to talk about Texas Belladonna Trip. Charles Watson, who committed the Manson murders about 3 months before he committed the murders, took an overdose of what he called belladonna, but it was actually Jimson weed that he took. I just wanted to talk about that tonight. And because as I was researching this stream, I found out what a dangerous drug to take Jimson weed is. I decided I want to do a bit of a PSA at the beginning, just in case people are looking at this stream because they're thinking of trying it. I just want to show people this place. This place is called Drugs Forum, and they specialize in addiction help and harm reduction, as you can see at the top of the page there. And there's their statement here. And basically what this tells you is these people are all there's people that moderate this forum who are actually clinical people that know how to give advice about drugs, and they make sure that bad advice isn't given and they correct bad advice and all this sort of thing. So yeah, I would suggest if you're going to try, for legal reasons, I have to say I do not recommend or condone anyone trying it. But if you are going to try it anyway, then I recommend that you go and educate yourself about what you're taking. And this forum will tell you everything. They've got a whole forum about nightshades, and that tells you all about this sort of thing. And and advises you not to do it. So because the reason that you shouldn't try it is because it's so hard to achieve the right dose to trip that you risk overdosing yourself and you can die from the overdose. And I'll even show you posts showing how you die if you overdose on it and how you can die. And Charles Watson was lucky he didn't die as well because he overdosed. So yeah, it's basically that was what I wanted to say about that. Anyway, yeah, don't trust Reddit if you're looking for advice about Datura or anything like that, right? Go to this place because they will actually give you the correct advice and make sure that you don't get given bad advice. Right, and the other thing that I wanted to read out was this. So is that talking about harm reduction, I need to explain to you the difference between drug use and drug abuse. Right, this is a clinical term, right? And what the difference is, right? So for the example of this, I'm going to talk about a man who does cocaine, right? So say there's a man who does cocaine, and he goes and he buys himself his gram of cocaine, and he takes it to his club or whatever, and he does his line. And this gives you a rush of euphoria, right? So he's going to go, wow, this is brilliant. I feel great. Yeah, right. And it's also a stimulant. So he's probably going to start dancing if he's in a nightclub, right? So he's on the dance floor dancing, right? And then cocaine is not a long-acting drug. So after about half an hour, the euphoria is going to wear off, and he's going to go and do another line of cocaine, and that's gonna give him the euphoria rush again, and he's going to carry on dancing. And that's the pattern cocaine use has, right? And then if it's cocaine use, then he'll finish his gram of cocaine and he'll be happy, and he'll go home, and the next day he won't think about doing cocaine again, and he won't use cocaine again for a month or whatever. But that's cocaine use, right? Cocaine abuse, right, is if you're a cocaine user, so you've used cocaine, but you go the very next day and you try to use it again, and when you snort the line, you don't get the same rush of euphoria, so you find you need to increase your dose. You need to do a line and a half or something like that to get the same rush of euphoria. Then it becomes cocaine abuse because you're increasing your dose to get the same buzz, which means that you're developing a tolerance to the drug. And if you continue cocaine abuse, you will end up addicted to cocaine. It's an addictive drug, right? That is what drug use and drug abuse means, right? So any drug, and in this article, they say high potential for abuse. That is what is meant. If they say the drug has high potential for abuse, it means it's a drug that you can become tolerant to, so you have to increase your dose to get the same effects. Right, and I also wanted to just read out this article because it's good information. Drugs are illegal for a reason. They don't just make them illegal because they don't want us to have a good time. They found that they harm you, so this is why they are illegal. Right, and this is the article's called How Hallucinogen Abuse Can Harm Your Health. Hallucinogens are among the oldest known group of drugs that come from plants, organic substances, or synthetic chemicals that cause hallucinations, distort perceptions, and alter moods. The use of hallucinogens in religious ceremonies and for healing goes back to ancient times for the same reasons they are able to alter brain and central nervous system functions. They are also popular for abuse. Most hallucinogens are classified as this is the American law, right, as Schedule 1 substances by the DEA because they have no currently acceptable medical use in the United States. They lack acceptable safety measures due to their unpredictable nature and variable effects in different individuals, and because there is a high potential for abuse. Which again, like I explained, that means that you need to increase your dose to get it to work, and that then becomes drug abuse. Right, with every dose, the individual risks unexpected harm during intoxication and the possibility of long-term or permanent effects on their physical and mental health. And this is the different categories of hallucinogens. Psychedelics, psychedelic hallucinations and other states of consciousness. No, sorry, I read that wrong. Psychedelic hallucinogens alter states of consciousness and cause distorted perceptions of sights, sounds, space, motion, time, objects, and sizes. They include lysergic acid, LSD, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, phencyclidine, I've got to remember how to pronounce these things, PCP, and mescaline, peyote. In 2010, a designer drug, 251 NBOME, nicknamed Smiles, emerged as a recreational hallucinogen with up to 16 times more potency than other psychedelics and resembling LSD with the empathogen, emotional communication and empathy effects of ecstasy. Wow, so they invented a drug that is 16 times stronger than acid and gives you the empathogen effect of ecstasy. Wow. Dissociative hallucinations. This is what Jimson weed is, right? Dissociative hallucinogens cause the user to feel disconnected from reality and self. Like psychedelics, they can also distort perceptions of sights and sounds. The most common dissociatives are ketamine, PCP, DXM, and salvia. Deliriants. It can also be categorized as a deliriant as well, Jimson weed. Deliriant hallucinogens cause deliriums, stupors, intense confusion, or confabulations which are distorted, fabricated, or misinterpreted memories. Yeah, that's what a confabulation is. A confabulation is a distorted, fabricated, or misinterpreted memory. Natural deliriants found in plants include angel trumpets, mandrake, and Jimson weed. Dramamine and Benadryl are also classified as deliriant hallucinogens. Dangers of variable experiences, right? This is why they are illegal. You can count on hallucinogens having varying degrees of potency, whether they come from natural sources or are synthetically made. Many hallucinogens contain neurotoxins and other chemicals that can add to the physical and psychological dangers. No two plants will have the same DNA, and synthetic hallucinogens can be more, and synthetic hallucinogens can be more problematic because they contain highly variable chemicals that are inconsistent and questionable, to say the least. Dose to dose, person to person, hallucinogens will have different effects and unpredictable consequences with every experience. There is no preconceived way of positively controlling what will actually happen because too many factors come into play, including chemical and substance variables, dosage methods of ingestion or use with other substances, prior hallucinogen use, biological factors, physical and psychological health and their states at the time of dosing, emotions, moods and expectations, external or environmental influences, impaired cognition, right? Hallucinogen abuse can harm your health by impairing your cognition. In many instances, the user loses their ability to make sensible judgment, inhibitions are lost, or they are unable to rationalize their thoughts. The inability to distinguish internal cognition from external cognition makes hallucinogen abusers extremely vulnerable to dangerous behaviors and their external factors, which means you can get into trouble basically on hallucinogens because you don't know what you're doing. Some hallucinogens are known to cause memory loss and diminished cognition for several days or weeks. Just a single experience on a bad hallucinogen can cause long-term neurological damages. Some brain damages may be permanent. The Centre for Behavioural Health Statistics and Quality reported that on an average day during 2012, the number of young adults aged 18 to 25 who used hallucinogens were 46,179 and 1,561 were first-time users. Bad trips. High doses of hallucinogens can cause negative experiences known as bad trips, where the abuser develops an intense fear, anxiety, panic, confusion, or rapid mood swings, and they may become combative or exhibit schizophrenic-like behaviors that put themselves or others at risk. The hallucinations can become so terrifying that the abuser may fear insanity or death, and because the duration can last for 10 to 12 hours, suicidal or harmful behaviors may occur in those who are under duress or suffering depression. Physical harms. Falls, accidents, rapes, and violent incidents are not uncommon when someone is intoxicated by hallucinogens. Some hallucinogens contain neurotoxins that can damage vital organs and cause debilitating physical impairments. Hallucinogens such as ecstasy, MDA, and smiles are commonly used in raves or all-night dance clubs, and these drugs cause elevated temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, seizures, and excessive sweating, which can lead to dehydration, hypothermia, cardiac arrest, loss of consciousness, or sudden death. In an effort to protect the safety of individuals using drugs from unknown sources, the non-profit organisation DanceSafe issues reagent testing kits, and you can get these in the UK as well, to help users identify the presence of certain substances in pills they take. There are many drugs passed off as other drugs, and these testing kits can only return results for identifiable contents. Right, so basically they're telling you that if the drug is fake, then it won't test positive for that drug, obviously. Other physical harms include insomnia, long-term changes in the autonomic nervous system, and toxic poisonings and overdoses. And there's a bit about psychological harms. Hallucinogen abuse can harm your psychological health by disrupting the neurotransmitter serotonin and its functions in the brain and central nervous system. Serotonin helps to regulate moods and has both a direct and indirect influence on several major brain regions. With repeat use of hallucinogens, the depletion of serotonin can cause severe depression and other psychological disorders that may be difficult to overcome. Psychological harms can be short-term or have long-term and possibly permanent implications, including frightening and unexpected flashbacks known as hallucinogen persisting perceptive disorder, HPPD, which can appear months after the last dose. That's a form of PTSD you can get from hallucinogens. In the past, they used to call people like this acid casualties. Anxiety and panic disorders, depression, suicidal or harmful ideations, paranoia and other psychosis, amnesia or confused memories, slow cognition and motor functioning. Right, yeah, that's the end of the article. Right. I've lost you. That's thought. No, but I needed to read that out at the beginning anyway. Right, I'll get into the script. But no, I need to read that out because this is quite concerning stuff. And people have been messaging me all week saying they see this stuff growing in their garden and all that. And I just, no, I can't make a stream about this without telling people how bad for you these things are. Right. So now I'm going to get into the actual trip report thing. Right. Right, so Charles Watson thought he was taking Belladonna. They told him it was Belladonna. Right. See, he thought he was taking this plant, which is called Belladonna, but actually he was taking Jimson weed, which is this plant. And this plant, I found out from the drug forum, is also known as Datura. This is one they call Datura. It's also known as the devil's trumpet and the devil's lettuce, which I thought was quite funny, considering Tex's line about here to do the devil's business. The drug he took was called the devil's lettuce. Right. And I'll get to reading what was said about his Belladonna trip in a second. Right. And this is from cielodrive.com. You can go and find that. You can find this yourself easily. I'll share the link. So, and I have a Facebook group now for this channel. So if you want to join the Facebook group to discuss anything I'm talking about here, you can find it. It's linked from the channel. If you go to the channel, the Facebook link takes you to the group that I've started. I'm in court, basically. And yeah, the reason I'm using this is because there are different sources for the Belladonna trip stuff, but I've never actually been able to find the actual arrest report of Charles Watson and actually read what it says in the arrest report. And so, like, the fullest source for this is this, unfortunately. Paul, but it's, if you look into this case, a lot of these people were told to lie in court, and they lied in court. And I think this man is lying as well. I don't believe quite what he says. I'll explain why after I've read it. Right, I'll start reading this out. That's his Belladonna mugshot. I'll be showing that on the screen later. Tex Watson mugshot, yeah, for his public intoxication. This is his fingerprints from the arrest, but I can't actually find the actual report. And there's his fingerprint on the door of Cielo Drive, and that's how they got his fingerprint, from the fingerprints from this. Right. December 12th, on Thursday, August 26, 1971, former Manson family member Paul Watkins was called to testify as a prosecution witness in the murder trial of Charles Tex Watson. On the witness stand, Watkins discussed Charles Manson's philosophies, drug use, women's roles within the family, and his impression of Charles Tex Watson. Watkins' testimony on the family's use of Belladonna indirectly provided the backstory to the one piece of physical evidence that connected Charles Tex Watson to the August 9th, 1969 murder of Sharon Tate and 4 others. And they don't mention all the other crimes he committed, which is that. Belladonna, one of the most poisonous plants in the United States, was sometimes used as a recreational drug because of its strong hallucinogenic effects. People call LSD a hallucinogen, but it's not anywhere near as hallucinogenic as Belladonna, Watkins told the courtroom. I mean, you hallucinate so strongly that you completely lose touch with what you would call reality. In other words, if I were on Belladonna now, I wouldn't necessarily have to be seeing all these people in this courtroom and all you. I may just be seeing some plum trees and an ocean in another reality. Watkins became familiar with Belladonna in his mid-teens while on a Hopi Indian reservation and had seen the plant growing in the hills around Spahn Ranch. And it apparently does. I know people that live in the area, they've seen it. Charles Manson and I were driving through the hills and we met some guy that kicked us off his land, said Watkins. So Manson said he wanted to poison him and asked me if I knew any poisons. So I said, yeah. This isn't true. I've read another version of how they actually came to take the Jimson weed. At Manson's request, Watkins dug up some Belladonna roots and began brewing them into a tea, making about a gallon. About a month before Watkins testified, Tex Watson was examined by Dr. Kenneth Grosvenor Bailey at the request of Judge Adolph Alexander. During the interview, Watson and Dr. Bailey told Dr. Bailey about his experience with Belladonna. I was at the ranch with a girl named Brenda McCann when a girl named Brenda McCann cooked some Belladonna roots that Paul knew about and found growing wild in Spahn Ranch. Tex told Dr. Bailey he pulled it up, she cooked it, and I walked into the kitchen en route to the motorcycle shop. According to Paul, Tex took a chunk of the root, which looked like yams, and told them he was going to hitchhike down the road to go pick up his motorcycle. Watkins told the courtroom he watched Tex leave the ranch, chewing the root, and didn't see him again until 3 days later, when Watson returned with his face bruised up. Tex told Dr. Bailey what had happened after he left the ranch that day. I was hitchhiking and nearly crawling on my knees, and my mouth was foaming, cotton. My body was sort of red, and I fell down 3 or 4 times before I got the cycle cranked up, and then I couldn't stand, recounted Tex. The last thing I remember was blaring down the road in the daytime, and the next thing I remember, the police were dragging me out of some car in the valley. I was in Van Nuys jail the next morning. Tex was arrested for public intoxication. He was fingerprinted but unable to sign his name, as noted on the printed sheet. His wild-eyed mugshot showed him grinning and making faces. Hallucinating and unable to talk, Tex's unstable behaviour began bothering his cellmates. 3 guys in the cell jumped me and beat me up, remembered Tex. They said I was very strong. They took me to the hospital to have my right eyebrow sewed up. Tex Watson was released the following day, but the minor arrest proved to be so insignificant 7 months later when on November 30th, 1969, the latent print section of LAPD matched up Tex's right fingerprint to the fingerprint found on the front door of the Tate residence. Right, so that was basically what they said in court. About Texas Belladonna Trip. Got notes here as well. I want to look at my notebook as well that I used for my it's the Beatles from the film Yellow Submarine. They're sending the psychic message to Charles Manson. Sorry. Anyway. Right. Oh, who's it? No one's commenting. Has anyone got any questions about anything I've said so far? Anything like that? No? This is Brenda, who was actually called Nancy Pittman, and she's the one that's supposed to have cooked the Belladonna root for Charles Watson. And as you can say, yes, he walked down the road, obviously, and the symptoms he describes, his face getting hot and his face going red and all that, are all symptoms that he overdosed on the Belladonna. Well, it's actually Jimson weed that he'd taken, which is also known as Datura. Right. Right. So yeah, this is the picture of him on the Belladonna. I'd actually just read out the bit about the actual account of that comes from the trial of his Belladonna trip. So now I need to share his psychiatry report. It's from Texas Psychiatry Report. Right, so yeah, because one of the main reasons that they moved him to this hospital was because he wasn't eating, and so he's asking him, because he's saying he can't tolerate certain foods. So the doctor says, "What can you eat?" And he says, "Juices, fruit and vegetable juices. I can't eat sugar or oily things. Somehow I can't keep them down." "How long has that been?" said the doctor. When I first took Belladonna in March 1969. "Why and where did you take Belladonna?" "I was at the ranch and a girl named Brenda cooked some Belladonna roots that Paul knew about." Oh, so he said Paul knew about it, but I've heard an account that says that someone else actually told them about the Belladonna. "And found growing wild at Spahn Ranch. He pulled it up and cooked it. And I walked into the kitchen en route to the motorcycle shop. I had a tire in my hand," which is what was said in court, isn't it? Yeah. "I didn't know anything about the stuff they gave me, and so they gave me a piece of the cooked root about 3¼ inches in diameter and 3 inches long, and I ate it like a baked potato. It didn't taste bad, but I was hitchhiking and nearly crawling on my knees, and my mouth was foaming cotton, and my body was sort of red, and I fell down 3 or 4 times before I got the cycle cranked up, and then I couldn't stand. The last thing I remember was blowing down the road in the daytime, and the next thing I remember, the police were dragging me out of some car in the valley. I was in the Van Nuys jail the next morning." "When was this?" said the doctor. "March 1969. I couldn't talk. They had to carry me. My body was real small feeling, and my face was sunken, and my skin was bright red, and I heard funny noises, and saw guys in the cell jumped me and beat me up. They said I was very strong. They took me to the hospital to have my right eyebrow, scar there now, sewed up." "So what did they say this was?" "He kept asking me if I was on drugs. I couldn't talk to tell him. That's why 3 of the guys in the cell beat me up. They said I was acting crazy. They let me go the next morning." "What were you taking beside Belladonna?" "LSD, mescaline. I didn't like any heroin or any reds or any yellows. We had peyote and cannibal, STB, cannabinol." Sorry, yeah, so you talk about cannabis, yeah. "Everybody had it. The girls too. They always had a big bag full, and Charlie himself would pass it out with whatever he thought the person needed. Later, I took speed and whites and bennies and uppers. Then I started sniffing white powder." Sorry, I've lost my place. But yeah, he's telling the psychiatrist basically he didn't just do belladonna, he did tons of drugs. What effects did you get from that? Like, you're wired up. There were 3 or 4 different things at one time. You could see all the stuff in your body. It was electronic, like with electric flashes and no feeling. Right. Psychiatric examination continued. The defendant appears in the unusual denim. He is accessible and oriented in 3 spheres. There is no evidence of hallucinations or delusion. He is alert. The coherence and flow of thought are satisfactory. The content of his thought is appropriate to the dialogue. Right, so they're saying he's not tripping out right now, right? By the reason of the long history of voluntary and involuntary contact with the intimate details, the facts, the feelings, and the experience at his home in Texas at the Spahn Ranch with the Manson family. I mean, jail. Right, now this is so that, sorry, we finished the bit where they're just talking about the belladonna, so that's all I need to read out for now. Right. Everyone up to speed with that? Yeah. That was what he said when the psychiatrist spoke to him. And I also wanted to show you stuff about the symptoms of overdose or atropine, because atropine is one of the other active drugs in there's the active substance in all the nightshade plants. So it was an atropine overdose that he'd taken. And this is finding, if you've watched this stream from the beginning, you'll see me talk about Drug Forum, and this is all from Drug Forum. Right. Drugs Forum. Yeah, and this is a more reliable source for information about drugs than going and asking people on Reddit or just randomly on the internet, just talking randomly to people on the internet about drugs. Yeah, the people here are clinicians. This is why I explained earlier. Yeah, well, I'll read out what this guy said first, because I went and asked on this drug forum for him. I told them what we was going to be streaming about, and I asked questions, and this is the answer someone gave me here. Jimson weed, Datura stratonum, is a part of the nightshade family that contains highly toxic and potentially deadly tropane alkaloids like scopolamine, which is the thing that the CIA were experimenting with, hyoscamine, and atropine. These tropanes are indeed quite poisonous and potentially deadly in high concentrations, which all of the Datura plant contains. These tropanes that can have wildly unpredictable concentrations from plant to plant. Even in an individual Datura plant, some parts of it can have wildly unpredictable amounts of these tropanes in different parts. That is what makes Datura such a hard thing to dose. Right, so he explains there like why it's so hard to take Datura, so they don't recommend doing it, because different parts of the plant can be wildly stronger than other parts, and every plant is different. So one plant may be way stronger than another plant, even though it is the same plant. Some of the true Datura connoisseurs will even actively seek out a specific plant that they have either grown themselves or searched out in the wild in spring to form an intimate partnership with the plant and themselves. Some people have very specific intentions that both plant and person must come to completely trust each other before the trip can be taken. So yeah, some people take Datura for spiritual reasons, and they want to have a spiritual trip, and so they actually form a bond with the plant and everything. Datura is no joke, and it's quite powerful and potentially deadly. I've even read some far-out anecdotal accounts of people with their partnerships with their Datura successfully using its powerful magic to completely erase whole blocks or even years of possible traumatic memories from their lives, or erase the memories of even knowing a specific person, like the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm still a bit skeptical of all that. But who knows? I'm certainly not going to get that crazy with witchcraft to see if there's any credence to all that. I have heard that achieving true ego death is possible with Datura. And that is one of the kind of things that the Manson family were apparently trying to do. They talk about, ego death. That was in Timothy Leary promoted and all that. It was that's the whole thing about psychedelics. I believe that could definitely happen, and how frightening that must be when it occurs. Yet it could be truly transformative. Again, I have no interest in ever pretending to be so brave as to ever use Datura, but I don't judge those that are. As for this text, Watson having brain damage that is believed to have been the result of Datura overdose he supposedly had 3 months prior to the Manson crew murdering those kids for Chuck Manson. I highly doubt that Datura, even an overdose, had anything to do with any brain damages he may or may not have had. And I agree with him, because listen to all the other drugs that he took. It could have been any of the drugs that caused the brain damage, right? Right, so yeah, that's all I need to read out for now, isn't it? Yeah, but I say if I will link to this in the description, and I will link to everything in my group. So yeah, if you're just here to learn about Belladonna, right, look at all these links, because this is the important stuff. Right, yeah, and I've read. Yeah, well, I've Delinda. Hello, Delinda. I'm here. Well, I've read out everything that I wanted to read out now. Really, I've read out the testimony from Paul Watkins, which is like basically what was said in court. I've also read out what was in his psychiatry report. And part of that sounds exactly like what Paul Watkins said, so that's obviously all staged as well. Right, and yeah, I've shown you the pictures. I'll go back to the pictures. Yeah, so well, if there's not a lot of people watching or people haven't got questions, then I can just end this stream and start another one, and we can just chat randomly or whatever. But that was everything that I really wanted to present, the important stuff, I think. Yep, yeah, I've done it all. Yeah, I've done it all now. Sorry if you've missed it, but yeah, when you see this on playback, you can watch the whole thing. Yeah, so that was basically everything that I would say. Oh, people are only just arriving now, you see. This is why I was trying to wait for people to arrive. Yeah, that's frustrating. Well, I've been going for 52 minutes. Yeah, sorry if you've missed it, right? But I'm not going to keep reading the stuff out over and over again. I've read all the stuff out. And all the links that I've used, I'm going to share in the description of this video and in my Facebook group, because I now have a Facebook group for this channel where I'm going to be discussing everything I've talked about on these videos. And so yeah, if you're interested in talking about anything you've seen in my videos, then come and join that group and I'll talk to you about it. Yeah, and that group is linked. If you go to my YouTube channel, then the Facebook link takes you to that group, right? So you can join my group. Oh, how is everyone then? Who is here? Delinda's here. Beckham was here, weren't he? Robin Owens, I know your name. Yeah, I recognise a few people. Right, yeah, I've basically read it all out now. So sorry if you missed it. And I also did a bit about harm reduction. So yeah, how to not damage your brain like Charles Watson did with Datura. Yeah, and there's lots of different plant names for this, because other people were DMing me. Someone DM'd me to say, yeah, because in another route I called it Belladonna Atropa, and apparently Jimson weed is not called. But yeah, there's loads. It's quite a confusing subject. But yeah, there's loads of plants that are in the nightshade family, so they get called Datura as well, and it's a confusing subject, and it's dangerous to try and take it, because basically the plant is it's unpredictable. It's too unpredictable. One plant can be way stronger than another plant. Some parts of the plant are way stronger than other parts. It can be like wildly stronger than other parts. And probably the reason that he OD'd was because the root is really strong, and he ate a chunk of the root. So yeah, it's just too easy to overdose on it. It's not worth the risk of trying to do it. If you want to trip, there's loads of other nicer things that you can trip on. And if you even want to get the dark trip, if you want the weird dark trip, there are other things you can take that will do it, that are easier to dose, that are less likely to fucking kill you if you do it wrong, basically. Yeah. So go to Drug Forum and look at that if you are interested in trying to do it. Don't just go and try and eat Jimson weed out your garden, because you could kill yourself, literally kill yourself, or give yourself permanent brain damage, or brain damage that will take a long time to recover from. Right, yeah, I'll just sit around for a bit, because people are, yeah, I know, Paul's busy, Paul's recording something. Yeah, sorry if anyone's just arriving. I've actually read out everything that I wanted to read out now, so you'd have to watch it on playback. I've been going for nearly an hour, but I could go live again. I could even start live streaming to that group now. And so just do a live stream that's in the group. So if you're in my group, you can just sit and watch me. Right. Yeah, and like I say, when I'll edit this so that some of the rubbish bits are taken up. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions or wants to say anything to me now, yeah, you do feel free to do that now. I'll stay around for a few minutes just in case. Yeah, and just to talk about Datura more as well, there's loads of channels on YouTube that are reading out people's bad trip reports from taking Datura. I know there's a channel called Tales from the Trip where he reads out a lot of them. They said organic brain damage and drug psychosis, and some of them said Folie psychosis as well, but that's to do with the fact the whole group of them committed a murder together. So they were saying they had this thing called Folie psychosis, where they were all experiencing the same psychosis, and that's what made them act in this way. But yeah, he was diagnosed with organic brain damage and drug psychosis at the time that he committed the crime. Basically, what they diagnosed him with. Yeah. Yeah, just a thought. But yeah, I read it out. If you watch the stream on replay, you'll see it. I read it out. No, he was really badly messed up when he got arrested. So no, and he was beaten up in the cell and everything like this, and he got taken to a doctor. It was bad. He wasn't just playing up how bad it was. Yeah, it was actually bad. And he talks to the psychiatrist. Because he did. Well, Paul Watkins says in his testimony, he walked away from the ranch chewing the Belladonna root and didn't come back for 3 days, right? And when he came back after 3 days, his face was beat up, and he told them this story of the Belladonna trip, and he was in Van Nuys jail. They arrested him, yeah. They picked him up and arrested him, and they arrested him fucking crawling down the road. And yeah, he couldn't stand. He was saying he couldn't stand, he was falling over. His face went all red, which suggests the high fever that you get when you've overdosed, and foaming at the mouth, which is the messed up mucus. Oh yeah, that's one thing I could show you that I haven't shown you. The symptoms of overdose of atropine. Right, yeah. Okay, I'll leave his face on the screen for a minute while I look it up. This is from the Nightshades forum of the drugs forum that I've and I'll link to this. This is a really good resource. If you ignore the advice not to take drugs and are going to do it anyway, then look at a place like this, because these people can give you reasonable advice on how to do it. Don't just trust Reddit and talk to random people on the internet and do it from them. Because I've seen on Reddit people giving each other really terrible advice on taking Datura, right? Don't just listen to random people on the internet. Right. I'll start reading this out in a second. Symptoms. This is atropine overdose effects and treatment. So this is a post telling you what to do if you see someone having an atropine overdose, basically. Yeah. Serious overdosage with atropine is characterized by widespread paralysis of parasympathetically innervated. Sorry, let me read the word out right. Categorized by a widespread paralysis of parasympathetically innervated organs, dry mucous membranes, widely dilated and non-responsive pupils, tachycardia, fever, and cutaneous flush. Cutaneous flush, that's his face going red, right? His body went red. Yeah, he says that in his psychiatrist report. His body went all red. Cutaneous flush are especially prominent, as are mental and neurological symptoms, disorientation, mania, hallucinations, gait disturbances, and symptoms may last for 48 hours or longer. In instances of severe intoxication, respiratory depression, coma, circulatory collapse, and death may occur. Right, so yes, these symptoms here, right, are showing you the fever and cutaneous flush. Right, the cutaneous flush, yeah, that's the word. That's the clinical word for when his skin went all red. And the mental he was experiencing disorientation, mania, and hallucinations because he freaked out the guys in his cell and they beat him up as a result, and gait disturbances. I couldn't get the picture to upload, but if you look at the picture of him from the side, you can see he's standing weird. That's a gait disturbance, right? And symptoms may last 40 hours or longer. Oh, yes. This is disturbing stuff as well. People need to hear this. The fatal dose of atropine is not known. In treatment of sorry, I've got to pronounce this right. Organophosphorus poisoning, cumulative doses of approximately 2,300 to 3,300 milligrams or more have been administered over several days to 45 weeks. In children, medical literature published prior to 1951 reports 4 deaths. So this shows that they knew about this at the time that Tex was interviewed, right? They had already they knew about this drug because there was reported deaths and all that. All in patients 10 months to 3 years of age. Oh my God. So yeah, that was 4 deaths. So children died from overdosing on this. And all associated with atropine eye drops or ointment. My God. So as a kid had drank atropine eye drops. Total estimated ophthalmic doses were 1624, 18 milligrams given as a single dose. Yes, this is telling you what to do if someone drips. Oh, that's terrible. That's horrible, yeah. Yeah, so any substance that contains atropine can kill you if you drink it, and this is what they're saying here. They're saying children drank it and died. With a dose as low as 0.5 milligrams, undesirable symptoms or responses or of overdosage may occur. These increase in severity and extent with larger doses of the drug. Excitement, hallucinations, delirium, and coma. Extreme hypothermia in a newborn has been reported with as little as 0.65 milligrams orally. In the presence of organophosphorus poisoning, much higher doses of atropine appear to be tolerated and required for optimal therapy. Treatment. All right, so if you see someone having an atropine overdose, right, this is what you should do. Supportive treatment should be administered as indicated. If respiration is depressed, so if they're having trouble breathing, artificial respiration with oxygen is necessary, right? So if they're having trouble breathing, you've got to take them to hospital. Ice bags, alcohol sponges, or a hypothermia blanket may be required to reduce fever, especially in children. Catheterization may be necessary if urinary retention occurs. Yeah, because that's another thing that can happen when you're ODing on drugs. You can become unable to piss. You can not be able to wee, and that can really hurt you. Since atropine elimination takes place through the kidney, output must be maintained and increased if possible. Yeah, so if you are ODing on atropine and you find you're unable to pee, you must go to hospital because that's how it gets out of your system. So you're going to die if you cannot pee on this stuff, basically. However, dialysis has not been shown to be helpful in overdose situations. Intravenous fluids may be indicated because of the affected person's photophobia. Because of the affected person's photophobia, the room should be darkened. So if you're overdosing on atropine, you're going to get a fear of light. You're going to be in pain when there's bright lights, right? So they're going to have to darken the room that you're in. In the event of toxic overdosage, a short-acting barbiturate or diazepam may be given as needed to control marked excitement and convulsions. Large doses for sedation should be avoided because central depressant action may coincide with the depression occurring late in atropine poisoning. Central stimulants are not recommended. Physogistamine given as atropine antidotes by slow intravenous injection of 1 to 4 milligrams, 0.5 to 1 milligram in children, rapidly abolishes delirium and coma caused by large doses of atropine in most situations. Since physogistamine has a short duration of action, the patient may again lapse into coma after 1 or 2 hours, and repeated doses are likely to be required. So this is advice for actual nurses and doctors that are finding this, because this site, it says in their statement, can be used as a source for medical people. It is that reliable. So yeah, if you're going to look for information about taking drugs, use this place, not Reddit. Right. Yeah, that's something that gets fucking reported a lot, weirdly enough. Yeah, with Belladonna trips, is seeing people, or creatures, weird creatures that talk to you and tell you stuff. Yeah, and you can have to crazy. Yeah, that seems to be a common thing that people talk about when they've taken Datura or Jimson weed. A lot of people see little people that talk to them. Yeah, it's a weird common thing. Yeah. Right, anyone else got any questions? Yeah, Andrew Bright is you're saying that he was overplaying the poor me card and that. Yeah, no, well, you're entitled to your opinion. Yeah, I think that as well. I think, of course, he was playing on his drug psychosis and all that. But at the same time, you cannot deny he fucking did do all these drugs, so he probably did have some amount of drug psychosis. But the guy was trying to get off of murdering 8 people, if you include Sharon Tate's baby, wasn't he? So yeah, he's he's going to play it up. But that still doesn't mean that he didn't have some sort of drug psychosis or brain damage, you know. And that doesn't give me any sympathy for him. I don't feel sorry for him because he was psychotic on drugs when he did that. He had a choice that he didn't have to take all those drugs and go and kill those people. So it doesn't mean that we should forgive him just because he was ill on drugs. Yeah, because he did those drugs himself. He had a choice. And it's not true that Charles Manson made them do it. No, he bloody did it himself. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not saying that he should get away with it because of this sort of stuff. No. Yeah, and doing drugs didn't cause the murders as well. All it's going to have done is, right, Charles Watson's a sociopath, and so he gets a lot of violent impulses. And if he was taking tons of drugs, it's going to have not helped him to control his violent impulses. It's going to have made it worse. That's the only way it contributed to the murders. The fact that he was high on all these drugs would have made it much worse. That is why they were so violent and horrible. Because he was going nuts. Because he was on speed as he did it and all this, wasn't he? Oh my God. But yeah, it's not the fact that he was on drugs that caused lots of people get brain damage from Datura and they don't run into the Hollywood Hills and kill people. Do you know what I mean? It's right. It's not that caused it. But we can't deny that it did happen to him. So it did happen to him. But that is not an excuse for why he did it. But yeah, but it did happen. We can't say it didn't happen. But he was, yeah, but then did he play on it? Of course he bloody did. Would, you know, anyone would if they to defend themselves, you know, from murder. But... Right. Anyone else got any questions? Because we've been going over an hour now, so I might as well just end. And right, yeah, and you can meet me in my Facebook group. Oh, Sam, have you joined the Facebook group yet? I haven't invited you yet. I've made a Facebook group for this channel now. And if you go to the channel page and click the Facebook link, it should take you to that group, and then we can see this group. Yeah, so what I'll do now is I'll end the stream and I'll go to the group, and I'm going to be sharing all the links, and you can talk to me in there if you've got any questions. Okay, right, so I'll end the stream now. Yep, thanks for watching. Thanks for everyone who's come. And this will be my regular slot now. So I'm going to start doing it around 5 o'clock Central Time in America, which is midnight for us in the UK. Because that's less likely to clash with other people that are streaming on the same night and stuff like that. Right. So, yeah, maybe next week. Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, I could ask the chat while you're here. What do you want me to talk about next? We can also discuss this in my group. But, yeah, there's loads of things I could talk about next. Because we've talked about the Belladonna trip now. There was something weird I found out about Leslie that no one else is talking about yet that I could talk about as well. So I could do a stream about that. Because I haven't heard anyone talking about this yet, so I don't think people have heard it. So this will be interesting to see if people know it. Well, yeah, what people think of it. Something disturbing about Leslie. Because Leslie is the one that a lot of people say should be released because she got retried, didn't she? And only found got 20 years to life instead of life, didn't she? So, but she's never going to be released, I don't think. Yeah, she keeps getting approved for probation, but they won't release her, I don't think. But no, there's something I found out about Leslie that suggests she isn't actually better. She's still quite crazy and dark and shouldn't be released from prison. We'll talk about that next week if anyone's interested. What else is there we could talk about on streams? Well, there's loads of stuff because I did a really long stream. I think it was last year about the police report, but it's so long that I decided to do like a lot of smaller streams just to show you little bits of it. And so yeah, you can see the one I did that's called Harrigan, Doyle, and MDA. If you look at my channel, which is just a small bit of the police report. So I could do more of those sorts of streams. where I talk about things from the big thing. The big stream that I did, that's too long, it's too much information. I doubt a lot of people are going to watch all of that, so it's better if I do smaller streams talking about little bits of it. Because in this case, what I found when I actually looked at the police report blew my mind. Because they tell you that this was all due to the kids being hypnotized by Charles Manson or whatever, and you look at the police reports and the FBI report, and they knew very well that everyone at CIA Drive was dealing drugs and that there was a lot of drug stuff going on, and the police initially were saying that it was drug murders, but that got covered up and not mentioned in court. They whitewashed the fact that these were drug murders, and that is really quite shocking, you know. Yeah. And that was what got me into this case and wanting to make a YouTube channel to get this information out there more so people can see it. Because it is quite shocking that they got away with it, whitewashing what these murders were actually really about. And to this day, people argue with you and don't want to know, or think that you're making it up, or you're a Charles Manson apologist for saying that the official narrative wasn't correct. And I am not a Charles Manson apologist. You know, my opinion of Charlie is that he probably, did deserve to be in prison and needed to stay in prison. I'm not a Charles Manson apologist. All I say is it's not fair that he was convicted of being the ringleader and the person that masterminded all this, because he actually wasn't. He was just, you know, an accessory, essentially, if you look into what really happened. So, yeah, like I say, come and join my group if you want to talk more about this. And I will stream again next week at about 5 o'clock Central Time in America and midnight UK time if anyone's watching from the UK. Yep, thanks for coming anyway, and I'll end the stream now. And yeah, like I say, any questions, come to my group and tell me. Bye everyone.